Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. And if it's your first time here, I'm Janetta, an author who loves to draw. On my channel, I focus on combining storytelling with art. If that's something you're interested in, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Let's get to it. Chapter 23. After debating the pros and cons of her current situation, Brooklyn decided she needed Dante's help. She was a little nervous about going to work as she left Alexis's place. It was a great relief when Hunter called to confirm their dinner plans. They talked during the entire ride in. After she parked in front of the building, Brooklyn looked around to see if there were any familiar faces. She rushed to her office to call Dante, but in the middle of dialing, she decided it was best to make the call in the conference room. She was paranoid that there were cameras or listening devices in her office. Keeping her game face on, she moved through the halls, speaking to coworkers. Upon entering the conference room, she closed the door and pulled out her cell. "Hey, Dante, I know you're out of town and out of touch until Sunday morning, but the moment you get this message, call me. My apartment was broken into last night. I think I need your skills to figure out what's going on without costing me my job. So please call me. Love ya. Bye." Brooklyn leaned on the door and exhaled. Now she understood that he wasn't lying when he said he loved her, but his job would put an unfair strain on their relationship. Is Dante really willing to give up his career for me? Brooklyn wondered. Would he come to resent me and I lose the man I love anyway? Brooklyn glanced down at her phone, one issue at a time. She shook her head, slid her cell into her suit pocket, and then exited the conference room, almost jumping out of her skin when Denise ran into her. "Brooklyn, you okay?" Denise touched her shoulder. "I didn't know anyone was in there." Putting her hand over her heart, Brooklyn answered, "Girl, I almost screamed." "Sorry about that," Denise offered. "I was coming to your office to tell you that your 4 o'clock meeting was canceled. Legal stated they would get back with us on the Bevic Media, Trivision Media situation. According to what I heard, the big guys are having trouble getting someone from Trivision Media to get back in touch with them." "Well, that's great. I would love to get out of here early. It's been a hell of a week." Brooklyn and Denise walked and talked as they headed back towards her office. As they entered Brooklyn's office, Denise asked, "Do you plan to see Hunter and Dante both this weekend?" "Yeah, having dinner with Hunter tonight, and most likely hanging with him Saturday. Dante returns Sunday, so I'll be hanging out with him then." Brooklyn smiled, shaking her head. Player," Denise teased. "Can you be my mentor?" Brooklyn closed the door. "As your mentor, I advise against putting yourself in this predicament." "What's going on?" Denise inquired in a serious tone. She exhaled, trying to find the words to express herself. "I had a friend who turned up pregnant, not knowing who the father was because she was hopping between 2 guys' beds. She miscarried and was left grieving alone for the child." Denise scrunched up her nose in confusion as she took a seat. "What does that have to do with Dante and Hunter? You haven't slept with either of them since you started dating them both." "That's the problem. When I'm with one of them, it feels like he's the only one in my life. It's like I forget about the other one until something happens to remind me that I'm not just dating one man." Brooklyn plopped down in her office chair with a huff. "I could never see how my friend had gotten herself in that situation until now. Here I am putting myself at risk of being in the same predicament." Denise slanted her body forward, giving her a maternal look. "Hey, you'll just have to roll the dice and pick who you want to be with." "That won't be an easy choice." Brooklyn cut her eyes over Denise and sighed. "Continuing to date them both will only make the decision harder. And this isn't one of those situations where you avoid making a decision to see how things play out." "Damn it. I don't want to lose either one of them. But you're right. This month will be the last of me having 2 men." Brooklyn declared as she gathered the paperwork she had been working on. "I guess I better get to work." "Well, if your schedule allows, how about we do lunch? We can finish this conversation then." Denise stood, turned to walk out, then circled back. "Oh, do you have a minute to talk about the other project we're working on?" She grabbed a seat when Brooklyn nodded. For the time being, Brooklyn put all thoughts of Hunter, Dante, and the break-in aside. Hunter knew he had to wrap up what he was doing at the club so he could make it to the restaurant on time to meet Brooklyn. He frowned when his cell rang until he saw who it was. Using his shoulder to hold the phone to his ear, he answered, "Hey, Vince. I didn't expect to hear from you so soon." "Well, I didn't expect to contact you this soon, but I found the man I was looking for." "Kinda. Sort of." Hunter knew how Vince operated, but he didn't want to be shielded from the entire truth in this instance. "What do you mean, kind of, sort of?" "I have been looking for Tuck's other partner, Alec McNear," Vince explained. Hunter got up, made sure his office was locked, and returned to his desk. "I take it he's Tuck's partner on the other side of the business." "Yes. Look, I need to get through a lot of information quickly, but while I'm doing it, I need you to stop what you're doing and get to your girl," Vince conveyed calmly. "Well, get to it," Hunter said as he closed out the files on his computer, shut it down, then grabbed his work bag. Alec Manier referred some woman named Megan to Tuck. Tuck is in the business of shipping digital payments and information. However, it slipped past him that his new partner slash money man was not who he said he was. Tuck took on a new partner because he was trying to expand his business. I had to do some more digging to find out who he thought he was aligning himself to. Vince's voice was one level above a whisper. "What happened?" Hunter asked as he did a quick sweep of the office to make sure he hadn't forgot anything. He exited and headed towards the car. Stopping, he turned around and headed to his safe. Tuck caught Megan snooping and shut her out of the special shipments. "Why didn't he fire her?" Hunter inquired as he grabbed his gun and locked the safe back up. "He hoped that he didn't have to use it." Long story short, we believe Tuck found out Megan's connection to Trivision. He wanted to know what she and Alec McNear was really after, which is how he found out that the guy that vouched for McNear as being legitimate was blackmailed. According to Bobby, Tuck's second in command, Tuck recently started putting the pieces together when he was asked about Ryan and Megan dating. Hunter shook his head, knowing Ryan's special skill set. Megan wants Ryan's skills for breaking into highly secure places. He wished Ryan was a better people reader. Exactly, Vince explained. She was secretly dating him because Alec had told Tuck that Megan's husband was doing time. What does all this have to do with Brooklyn? Hunter made it to his car in the garage and peeled out into the parking lot, hitting the remote to close the door, then pulled into the street. Tuck found something to back Trivision off of him, or so he thought, Vince stated. Hunter's Bluetooth took over. "Don't tell me Brooklyn has it." According to Bobby, Tuck sent it to her office because he thought it was the safest place. "Damn it." Hunter glanced at the clock as Vince muttered curses. "What?" Vince stuttered as he was thinking of a way to avoid answering the question. "Oh, sorry, I was getting a message about something else." Anyway, Bobby's trying to locate Tuck's go-to guy, Aaron. Tuck used him to get Megan away from Ryan. Hunter weaved through the rush hour street traffic, and that didn't alert her that Tuck was onto her and McNear's agenda. Bobby said Tuck gave her the impression that she was meeting someone that would give her the information she'd been looking for. Aaron's a little slow, so Tuck and Bobby always gave him a cover story. Megan knew that Aaron wasn't there to get her away from Ryan and played along with it. Vince's voice conveyed that he wouldn't go into details on how Tuck really convinced Megan to agree to it. "Wait, I have to interrupt. Does Tuck have a secure facility that Megan wants Ryan to break into? If so, why didn't he take the information there?" Hunter didn't like the idea of Brooklyn holding the smoking gun. His every move has been monitored over the last few months. Tuck didn't want to risk it. There were only a select few who knew the location of the facility. Vince paused. "I'm not trying to get into how the business worked. You don't need to know all that." Hunter knew he had to deal with the situation at hand and not speculate. "Vince, I don't like this." "You shouldn't. Look, Bobby has a meeting with the data specialist who works in their remote office to find out what information he gave Tuck. He's still tracking Aaron down, so I won't have any more information until Bobby does his thing." Hunter kept an eye out for cops as he sped through the streets. "I know you didn't want to tell me so much," Vince stated. "You needed to have some sort of idea what you're dealing with." "Thanks, Vince." Hunter knew he'd be hitting traffic soon. He hoped it wasn't terrible. "Hunter, get Brooklyn somewhere safe and let me do the rest. You've managed to keep your hands clean. The one thing I know is that situations like this change your life in an instant, that things happen that you can't take back. Vince stated as if he hoped Hunter heeded his warning. Hopefully, it won't come down to that. Hunter slowed some, thinking it wouldn't be a good idea to get pulled over. The sound of someone knocking on Vince's car's window could be heard as he told Hunter, "Text me when you and Brooklyn are somewhere safe." Hunter was not happy about the update Vince had given him. He had just disconnected with Vince when Brooklyn called. "Hey, beautiful. I was just about to call you. I was going to suggest that I pick you up from work. Well, I was calling to let you know I got off work early. I'm heading over to the restaurant now. I should be there soon." Brooklyn sounded excited to get her weekend started. Hunter took the first opportunity to start heading toward Shirlington. "I should be there a few minutes after you." "Well, I'll grab a table while I wait, and you can save your Mr. Big Shot card for another time," she laughed. Funny. Hunter's mind raced, trying to figure out the best way to handle this without freaking her out. "BK, maybe we should skip the restaurant and you meet me at my place. Let me cook for you." "Well, I'm eager to have you cook for me. My mouth has been watering all day for everything but the kitchen sink pizza. Extra sauce, no anchovies, on a wheat crust." She smacked her lips as if she was eating. "So unless you know how to make one of those, I'll take a rain check for another day." Hunter insisted I can order and have it delivered. "What's going on, Hunter?" Brooklyn asked, sounding if she did not like the tone of his voice. "Hey, after what you told me about your apartment being broken into, I just started to think maybe it's best for us not to be out at a restaurant." Hunter checked the clock on the dashboard, wondering how close she was to their destination. "I'm more than willing to relocate dinner to your place, but I need a drink." "Baby girl, let me order the pizza and I can mix up whatever you want to drink." His home bar always stayed fully stocked. "Okay." Given how stubborn and independent she could be, Hunter was shocked but relieved when she gave in to his request. The feeling lasted all of 2 seconds. Then he heard her car door slam, followed by the sound of the car alarm beeping and her heels clicking on pavement. "What are you doing?" He just about screamed into the phone. "Look, I'm not even 3 steps from the grocery store." He can imagine her putting her hand on her hip. "I'm just going to pick up my prescription and grab some cash so I can get a shake at the Shake Shack on the way to your house." "I'm less than a minute away from you." Hunter sped through the yellow light. "Do you really need that prescription today? Because I'll give you the cash." He hadn't figured out how to express how serious the situation was without telling her all the details. "Would you trust me when I say we need to head straight for my place? I'll explain all the whys when we get there." "But I'm in the store already," Brooklyn paused. "I'll call you when I get back to the car." "Brooklyn?" Hunter shouted at the sounds on the other end. Damn it. He was at the end of the block that she was on, but the thick traffic was moving in spurts. He had only made it to the middle of the block by the time Brooklyn exited the store. With all the traffic, she didn't notice him as she strutted to the parking lot. Hunter's heart stopped when he saw a white van pull alongside her and the side door open. It felt like deja vu as he watched things unfold, feeling much more helpless than during the previous incident. He started leaning on his horn, trying to get the cars in front of him to move out his way, but the driver was doing a slow-motion parallel park. Hunter threw his car into reverse, but couldn't go anywhere for the line of cars behind him. And even though there was no oncoming traffic at the moment, the tall median dividing the two sides of the street kept him from jumping in those lanes to get to Brooklyn. A guy in black jumped out the van and grabbed Brooklyn. She elbowed him in the face and started running back towards the store. Hunter put the car in drive again and tried to edge around the guy who was still trying to park, but there wasn't enough room. If this fool can't get that little raggedy car in the space an SUV came out of, he shouldn't be driving. He leaned on his horn again. He debated jumping out of the car, but it wouldn't do Brooklyn any good if they got her in the van before he made it to her. Hunter watched helplessly as Brooklyn fought the guy who grabbed her again. Another guy jumped out the van and grabbed her feet. Brooklyn's body was buckling until the guy held a cloth over her mouth. The car in front of Hunter finally moved enough for him to maneuver around. The two men threw Brooklyn into the van and closed the door, just as he reached the driveway leading to the parking lot. He sped up, using his car to block the van's path. The van went into reverse, hitting a car coming out of the parking space. Swerving around that car, the van did a fast backward turn, then headed for the other exit. Hunter followed, passing the hit car as the driver jumped out and began yelling at the van. Never taking his eyes off the van, Hunter called the police and told them what was happening. He pursued the van down the street, speeding through a light to stay on its tail. When the van hit a main street, it began weaving in and out of traffic. Hunter stayed on them, jumping lanes whenever they did. The van hopped on 395 north into slow-moving traffic, then merged to get off at Glebe Road West. After getting through the congested off-ramp, Hunter used a long stretch to cut the distance between them, down to one car. The van veered to the right as if it was going to turn onto Jeffrey Davis Highway. Hunter did the same, giving the emergency operator the direction the van was headed, and ignored the repeated instructions not to pursue the vehicle. "Don't do it!" Hunter screamed as the van started cutting across lanes of traffic to make a left turn onto Jeffrey Davis Highway. He held his breath, watching the van execute this dangerous maneuver in an attempt to shake him off their tail. He exhaled when they made it. The traffic wouldn't allow him to pull that maneuver safely, so he took the right. At the first opportunity, he did a U-turn. Hunter was not feeling very confident as he sped through the street, turning onto the block where he lost the van. It was nowhere in sight. He informed the emergency operator where he lost them and disconnected the call. The fact that he didn't hear or see any flashing lights didn't comfort him. He drove a couple of more blocks before he hit the steering wheel in frustration. "Damn it!" He started driving to the police station. "Call Vince," he commanded, and waited as his phone dialed up Vince. "They got her," he said as soon as Vince answered. "I'll get the boys on it. You know the protocol," Vince replied. "Yes, heading there now." Hunter stopped at the red light. He grabbed his Glock from between the seats and placed it in the glove compartment. "My associate has been in the middle of something and couldn't get me the information on the plans to snatch Brooklyn earlier. Otherwise, this would have never happened," Vince apologized. "I'll check in with you later." Hunter questioned every move that he made from the moment Brooklyn called. Now he wished he had just told her straight up that he thought she was in danger. Hell, he wished he would have rammed the car that was trying to park and just gotten to her. While it would have been risky, he wished he would have rolled down his window and shot the tires out the van. It was all water under the bridge. Brooklyn was gone. Hunter parked his car and took a deep breath before heading into the police station. Chapter 24. "I think she's coming too," Brooklyn heard a husky voice say. She tried to open her eyes, but realized they were covered, and her hands were tied. In an instant, it all came back to her. She had been kidnapped. All because I didn't pay attention to the urgency in Hunter's voice. Now more than anything, she wished she had listened to him. "What do you want from me?" she asked, hoping that because they blindfolded her, they were planning to let her go. "We don't want anything from you, little lady, so sit back and enjoy the ride. You can ask our client what he wants with you once we drop you off. But not another word or I'll have to gag you." The tone of voice let Brooklyn know he was serious. She was smart enough to keep quiet. Her mind, on the other hand, was busy trying to figure out what was going on. Why had she been grabbed now? Did they think she had something they needed? Is that why they broke into her office and her place? She was certain that the men that grabbed her didn't have current plans to harm her, but she wasn't certain of their clients' plans. The unknown element made her feel sick to her stomach. What the hell was about to happen? They drove about an hour longer before they turned off the smooth highway and onto a bumpy, uneven road. The longer they drove on the road, the less Brooklyn heard the sound of other cars. It felt like another 20 minutes or so before the van finally came to a halt. Brooklyn jumped as someone opened the side door. "Come on, little lady, your host awaits." Someone grabbed her by the arm and pulled her out the van. She tried to pull away, but she was held firm. Brooklyn was led up some uneven stairs and into a dank-smelling place. "Here's the package." She was pushed slightly ahead of her captors. "Now, if you'll give us our payment, we'll be on our way." "Not a problem." A new masculine voice sneered, then 2 shots fired, and Brooklyn heard 2 bodies hit the floor. Hunter left the police station and called Vince. "Any news?" He hated feeling helpless. "We're on the trail, but give me a little time." Vince stated. I already have a good lead, but don't want to say any more until I'm sure it'll pan out. Vince, you have to give me something, Hunter begged, hopping into his car. You can help me out by contacting Brooklyn's ex and seeing if he can pick up any leads. Hunter could tell that Vince was trying to give him something to do that was productive, but that would also keep him out of the way. Maybe work with him and keep me posted. That way, we have more irons in the fire and could move faster. I would, but I don't have Dante's number. Hunter hissed through gritted teeth. Vince asked, You have a pen? Hunter dug through his glove box and pulled out pen and paper. Vince gave him Dante's number, promised to keep in contact, and then hung up. He didn't even want to know why Vince had Dante's number on hand. Hunter dialed Dante's number. To his annoyance, it immediately went to voicemail. Damn it, Dante, now is not the time to be hard to reach, he thought as he began to leave a message. This is Hunter. Brooklyn's in trouble. Call me back ASAP. He hung up and dialed again. He was going to keep calling until Dante answered. He was fuming by the time he reached his place. He had continued to call Dante every 5 to 10 minutes and still hadn't gotten him. He grabbed his gun out of the glove compartment, tucking it into the waistband of his pants. Speed walking, he headed to the stairs and took them 2 at a time until he made it to his floor. Inside his home, he went in search of his old phone book that had Brooklyn's friend's number. Some of the info had probably changed over the years, but he was counting on someone's being the same. Hunter dialed Dante a few more times as he looked for the book. When he found it, the first number he searched for was LaShawne's. She was most likely the one that Brooklyn gave her extra key to. He wanted to search Brooklyn's place for the file. Before dialing LaShawn, he called Dante again. This had better be an emergency with the way you're ringing my phone, Dante answered annoyed. Hell, man, how could it not be? Hunter yelled, then took a breath to calm down. This is Hunter. Brooklyn has been taken and we need to find her. Where can we meet? Dante dropped the F-bomb and stated, I'm 2 hours outside of town. Tell me what happened. Hunter quickly filled him in. We have to find her. I don't think the cops are going to move fast enough. I'm certain they won't, Dante roared. Look, take down this address and meet me in my partner Lane. They're in 30 minutes. I thought you said you were hours away, Hunter questioned. I'm calling in a favor. Now, will you be there or not? Dante asked. We're going to need a ride. I'll be there, Hunter replied and hung up, grabbing his Escalade's keys and then heading to the garage. 30 minutes later, Hunter waited impatiently by a large rickety shed next to a huge open field. He had checked the address 4 times because this wasn't what he was expecting to find. A sound off in the distance caught his attention. He stepped out of his vehicle and looked up in the sky. Sure enough, a helicopter was fast approaching. Minutes later, it landed, and Dante and a female quickly exited and ran his way. Let's go, Dante commanded, and climbing in the driver's seat of the Escalade. Lane climbed into the back seat. What the hell? Hunter asked, then decided now wasn't the time for fighting. He ran over and climbed into the passenger seat. As Dante pulled off, Hunter's phone rang. What do you have? Did you get a hold of Dante? Vince asked. Hunter bellowed. Yeah, I just picked him up. Good. Look, we think we got a lock on the location of the van. For the second time that day, Hunter found himself jotting down an address. Skeptically, Dante asked, How reliable is your source? Very, Hunter retorted, giving him the address. On the drive there, Dante grilled Hunter about everything he saw and everything that happened. Hunter ignored Dante's look that conveyed, Why didn't you save her? He was already beating himself up over it. They found the van on a remote road in front of the dilapidated cottage bearing the address they had been given. Come on, Lane, Dante ordered, pulling out his gun. You stay here, he told Hunter. Not on your life, Hunter replied, pulling his Glock out of the glove box. They approached the van cautiously, all the while keeping an eye on the cottage. The van was empty. Carefully, they made their way to the cottage. Dante signaled Lang and Hunter to go around the back. He climbed the stairs and waited a minute to give Lang and Hunter time to get in place. He peeked into the window beside the door, and darkness looked back at him. Gingerly, he reached out and slowly turned the knob, which opened without much effort. He pushed the door in, careful to keep himself out of the line of fire. Silence instead of gunfire filled the cottage. With his Beretta leading the way, he stepped in carefully. Immediately, the two bodies in the middle of the floor caught his attention. Lang and Hunter entered the room from the rear of the house. "It's clear," Lang yelled, holstering her gun. She looked down at the bodies and asked Hunter, "Are these the guys that took her?" Hunter's stomach dropped. "Yes," he grunted. "Lang, we have to move quickly," Dante instructed. Lang pulled out equipment from her side bag to scan the dead men's fingerprints and took their pictures. She sent her findings off to their resources, asking that they try to identify the victims as soon as possible. "Can you send those to me as well? I'd like to have my resource look into them," Hunter requested of Lang, who looked over at Dante for approval. "Maybe you should tell us who this resource is. How exactly was he able to track down the van so fast?" Dante asked Hunter. Hunter stood his ground. "Not going to happen. My resources work in the streets while you're working through red tape protocols. The streets much faster. We need to work all the angles if we want to get BK back soon." Dante gave Lang the go-ahead nod, and she forwarded the information electronically to Hunter, who quickly sent it off to someone else. With worry etched in his face, Dante said, "We need to get out of here. We can notify local authorities after we get a jump start. We don't want to be slowed down with their questions." As they carefully made their exit, Hunter asked, "What's next?" "Dante, I think we should head to Brooklyn's place," Lang suggested as they jogged back to the truck, constantly surveilling their surroundings. Since they grabbed her, they must not have been able to find what they are looking for at her place. If we find whatever it is they're looking for, it'll let us know what our next step should be. "I'm with you," Hunter weighed in. "We need to find whatever it is that made them desperate enough to grab her." Dante's gut instinct had told him this as soon as he saw the two dead men in the cottage. If they didn't figure this thing out sooner rather than later, Brooklyn will be added to the body count. Hope you enjoyed today's story. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be and stay blessed.